Hi everyone, and welcome to another Once Human build guide. Today I will be showcasing my critical pulse build I like to use for silo farming. Sit back and enjoy. So let's take a look at the main weapon of this build, the critical pulse. Weapon features. Triggers continuous power surge on hit with a 70% chance to generate deviated particles near the player. Pick them up to enter a charged state. Continuous power surge can trigger every 0.5 seconds within 3 seconds on the current target. Higher stacks shorten the interval minimum of 0.26 seconds, stacking up to 5 times, dealing 50% damage to the player. While in a charged state, hitting a target consumes 1 charge to create an orb of lightning, dealing shock elemental status damage of 75% PSI intensity to targets within 5 meters every 0.5 seconds. This damage benefits from power surge damage bonuses and has a 5% chance to generate deviated particles lasting for 3 seconds, dealing 50% damage to the player. Shock elemental damage bonuses of plus 30%. So what is power surge? Deal status damage of 50% psi intensity once and inflict power surge status for 6 seconds. Accuracy minus 40. Shock element type. The additional damage cannot crit, cannot strike weak spots, and will not decay with distance. Actual factor 50% times 1 plus power surge damage factor bonus times 1 plus power surge final damage bonus. For my calibration, I am using portable style for mobility, movement speed while firing plus 50, weapon switching speed plus 50%, and movement speed while holding gun 12.5%, with an elemental damage bonus of 6.6% and another elemental damage bonus of 11.9%. And for my accessories, I am using tactical scope for my optic and tungsten AP arrow for my ammunition. For my secondary, I am using the D50 Wildfire. 60% chance to trigger the bullseye when hitting a target. there is an 80% chance to spread the bullseye to enemies within a 15-meter area. If there are no enemies within the area, weapon damage plus 25% for 10 seconds. When hitting a weak spot of marked enemies, attack plus 3% for 10 seconds, up to 3 stacks. For the calibration, I am using rapid shot style for fire rate plus 25%, magazine capacity plus 40%, and attack minus 15%, with double weak spot damage, 7.4% and 11.8%. For my accessories, I am using a salt brake for my muzzle, compact reflex sight for my optic, integrated laser sight for my tactics, and tactical pistol mag for my magazine. And for my ammo, I am running tungsten pistol ammo. What is bullseye? Highlight marked targets will be outlined and suffer from vulnerability plus 8% for 12 seconds. This in turn means that the affected enemy will receive 8% extra damage. Now let's do some damage testing. Here are my stats before damage testing. Here are my cradle mods. Your mods may differ depending on which server you are currently on. And here you can see my stats after. For my food buff, I am running mixed fried hot dog, used to increase damage by 20% towards enemies affected by the bullseye. For this, you will need 1 piece of meat, 2 deviated mushrooms, and 2 corn oil. For my drink buff, I am using whimsical drink, used to gain 25% status damage bonus. For this, you will need 1 bellflower, 1 deviated saffron, 5 purified water, and 5 ice cubes. For my deviant, I am using the Lone Wolf's Whisper. Autonomously attacks enemy targets and attracts the aggro from nearby enemies. When a target dies, it spawns a clone, increasing weapon damage received by the attack target by 43.2%. This is because my Lone Wolf Whisper is a level 5 skill rating. I prefer to use Lone Wolf Whisper than Mini Festa, as it's easier to do ad control with the Lone Wolf Whisper. Now let's take a look at the armor sets and mods that are used for this build. For my main armor set, I am using 3-piece treacherous tides. For weapon damage reduction of 10%, when HP is below 70%, weapon damage and status damage plus 12%, and the HP reduction from low sanity is decreased by 40%, weapon and status damage plus 10%, and further increases as your sanity drops up to 28% at 30% max sanity. Next, I am running 2-piece Blackstone set for cold and heat resist plus 2.5%, and upon dealing elemental damage, gain 1 stacks of warm sensation. Elemental damage plus 2% for 2 seconds. Triggers 1 time every 0.5 seconds up to a maximum of 5 stacks. And for my key armor, I'm running the new overloaded pants. After triggering Power Surge 20 times, the next 6 shots will consume reserved ammo instead, and shock damage plus 20%. Cooldown of 4 seconds. Triggering Power Surge during the cooldown does not count towards this effect. So let's have a look at the mods that really bring this build together. For my bow, I am using Static Shock Power Surge. Power Surge status duration minus 50% and Power Surge damage plus 20%. Power Surge damage plus 6%. Damage against elite enemies plus 3%. Weapon damage reduction plus 3.6% and damage plus 4.8% on targets with Power Surge. For my Wildfire, I am running Vulnerability Amplify Precision. The Bullseye adds Vulnerability plus 8%, Weak Spot damage plus 9%, Head damage reduction plus 6.4%, Damage against elite enemies plus 4.5%, Max HP plus 3.6%. For my helmet, I am running the mod Worker Proficiency Lunar. When reloading with an empty magazine, reload speed plus 10%, elemental damage plus 20% for 5 seconds, resets with the next reload. The lower your HP, the higher your damage reduction against deviants, up to 7.2%. The lower your HP, the higher your elemental damage, up to 9.6%. The lower your HP, the higher your weapon damage, up to 12%, and damage against elite enemies plus 3%. For my mask mod, I am using Thunderclap with the Power Surge suffix. After triggering Power Surge 20 times, the next weapon hit summons Celestial Thunder. Shock damage of 200% psi intensity. Aptitude effects. Power Surge damage plus 6%. Damage against Great Ones plus 1.2%. Weapon damage reduction plus 6%. And damage plus 3.2% on targets with Power Surge. Mod, I am running Ardent Shield Lunar. While the shield is active, you gain 15% damage reduction. When the shield exceeds 1,000 single instances of damage, they will not penetrate the shield. My aptitude effects are the lower your HP, the higher your elemental damage up to 16%. The lower your HP, the higher your damage reduction against deviants up to 9%. The lower your HP, the higher your status damage up to 7.2%, and damage against elite enemies plus 4.5%. For my pants mod, I am running Elemental Resonance Talents. For each instance of elemental damage dealt from the previous magazine, the next magazine gains elemental damage plus 1% for 15 seconds upon reloading up to 24%. My aptitude effects are elemental damage, blaze, frost, shock, or blast plus 8%, damage against elite enemies plus 3%, status damage plus 2.4%, and status damage reduction plus 6%. For my gloves mod, I am running Elemental Overload Talents. Elemental damage plus 18%. Aptitude effects. Elemental damage plus 6.4%. Status damage plus 4.8%. Damage against normal enemies plus 4%. And weapon damage reduction plus 4.8%. And for my feet mod, I am using Rush Hour Talents. Every 10% HP loss grants plus 4% melee weapon and status damage. My aptitude effects are elemental damage plus 8%, damage against normal enemies plus 6%, status damage plus 4.8%, and damage against elite enemies plus 1.5%. I'd like to take this moment to say thank you for watching. Feel free to like, subscribe, or leave a comment, and stay tuned for more Once Human build videos.